You're formally welcome back.
Good morning, sir. How are you
Morning,
this morning?
everybody. Good
Mr.
morning. Thank you.
President Trump, how do you feel? President Biden?
Well,
Good morning, Mr. Vice President. How do you feel? Any comments, sir? Nope.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect's cabinet and cabinet-level designees.
Just try and catch her eye.
Present arms!
Presidential Inaugural Committee. Committee Co-Chair, Mr. Steve Witkoff. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, former Vice Presidents, the Honorable Dan Quayle, accompanied by Mrs. Marilyn Quayle, and the Honorable Michael Pence. Ladies and gentlemen, the 42nd President of the United States, the Honorable William J. Clinton, accompanied by the Honorable Hillary Rodham Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen, the 43rd President of the United States, the Honorable George W. Bush, accompanied by Mrs. Laura Bush. Ladies and gentlemen, the 44th President of the United States, the Honorable Barack H. Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief Justice of the United States, the Honorable John G. Roberts, Jr., and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States. Tiffany Trump, and Barron Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting Dr. Biden and Mr. Emhoff, the Republican Staff Director of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Ms. Emily Leviner, the Senate Secretary for the Minority, the Honorable Gary Myrick, the House of Representatives Chief Administrative Officer, the Honorable Catherine Spindor, and Mr. Bruce Fisher. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jill Biden and Mr. Douglas Emhoff. Ladies and gentlemen, performing O America, please welcome the Armed Forces Chorus and America's tenor, Christopher D. Macchio. The Honorable Jackie Barber, the Clerk of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Kevin F. McCumber, Mr. John Bessler, Mrs. Kelly Johnson, Mrs. Iris Weinshaw Schumer, and Mrs. Jennifer Scalise. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States, Ranking Member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Deb Fischer, House Democratic Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, and Senate Majority Secretary, the Honorable Robert Duncan. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, the Honorable Joseph R. Biden, Jr., and Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Kamala Devi Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the Vice President-elect, the Executive Director for the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Mr. Michael Wagner, Senate Deputy Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper, Jason Bell, and House Deputy Sergeant-at-Arms, Mr. Sean Keating. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President-elect of the United States, the Honorable J.D. Vance. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the President-elect, the Staff Director for the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Elizabeth Farah, House Sergeant-at-Arms, the Honorable William P. McFarland, Senate Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper, the Honorable Jennifer A. Hemingway, Senate Majority Leader, the Honorable John Thune, and the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, House Democratic Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, House Majority Leader, the Honorable Steve Scalise, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson, Senate Democratic Leader, the Honorable Charles E. Schumer, Ranking Member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Deb Fischer, and Chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar. Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome the chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 60th presidential inauguration. Today, President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Vance will take their oaths of office, and we will witness the peaceful transfer of power at the heart of our democracy. For the past year, I've chaired the Inaugural Ceremony Committee, which includes the leadership of Congress from both parties. We thank the committee and Capitol staff and law enforcement who worked so hard over the last year, and especially the last 3 days. You've done a beautiful job, and you have shown grace under pressure. Our theme this year is our enduring democracy. The presence of so many presidents and vice presidents here today is truly a testament to that endurance. We welcome President Biden and...
This is Global News.
Hello and welcome to our Global News Inauguration Live Special. This is a live look at Washington, D.C., and you are looking inside the Capitol Rotunda. Donald Trump is returning to the White House today. The former 45th president will become the 47th president. Trump will take the oath of office momentarily. Now, with freezing temperatures in Washington, D.C., the inauguration ceremony has been moved indoors, the first time since 1985. Hello, I'm Miranda Anthesol.
And I'm Eric Sorensen. Global News Washington correspondent Reggie Cicchini is joining us from the U.S. Capitol. We'll be covering the event in Washington, including an expected speech from Donald Trump.
That's right. And as we mentioned, Reggie is in Washington, giving us context and keeping track of developments. So let's start with Reggie. Reggie, great to see you. Let's set the scene for our audience here. What exactly is on the agenda today, and what is taking place?
Hey there, Miranda and Eric. A very different inauguration, as you mentioned in the beginning. This is taking place indoors, and it's taking place after several returns to kind of norms and traditions that used to surround the inauguration up until 4 years ago when those traditions were broken. We saw Donald Trump wake up this morning. He was staying at Blair House, which is an official residence across the street from the White House. He then partook in a church service at St. John's Church at Lafayette Square, and then he returned into the White House for a conversation, some tea, some coffee with outgoing President Joe Biden and outgoing Vice President Kamala Harris. And then we saw the motorcade move from the White House to the U.S. Capitol, not to the east front where it would normally happen, but to the interior of the rotunda, where Joe Biden and Donald Trump actually took the same vehicle with each other. And I think that is going to be a bit of a question here. Is there's going to be criticisms given to Joe Biden. He was the one who called Donald Trump a threat to democracy, and then ultimately decided to return to the norms here and then take a vehicle with him to the U.S. Capitol, where we now anticipate that swearing in a few minutes from now, and then the speech from Donald Trump to lay out 4 years of his term.
All right, Reggie, as you mentioned, because of the extreme cold, things had to be moved indoors. How do you think that impacts the mood of the event? How does that change things around?
Well, look, it changed the security perimeters here in Washington, D.C. They had to adjust them and alter them because there was fewer events taking place in front of the Capitol. It was moved inside, and then more things were moved down to the arena downtown. So there's an expanded security perimeter there, but there is not a lessened security enforcement in D.C. There are tens of thousands of officers that have been brought in, not only from D.C. and the U.S. Capitol Police, but National Guards and police forces from in and around the United States, all taking the oath over the weekend to act as a protection service here for what is going on. Inside, this is very different. Usually we would see thousands upon thousands of people outside. Fewer people inside, a few hundred. Many of them are part lawmaker, other parts are from the tech world. But the mood here, it's one of disappointment for many of the thousands of people who came to see Donald Trump take this oath of office, many of them coming from all parts of the U.S., spending some big money to be here. We know that D.C. jacked its hotel rates up, so there's some disappointment here, but at the same time, there's also enthusiasm. This is a group of people who were part of that massive number of people who came out to vote in Donald Trump on election night, and he believes that these are the people that gave him the mandate, and they're now going to get to hear what they've given Donald Trump.
Reggie, Eric here. We've been watching, some of the former presidents marching in, wondering what some of them are thinking about at this time, and some of the other big names that are there in attendance. Tell us about them.
Yeah, look, former presidents obviously are going to be a part of this. Some of the president's significant others are not a part of this. We know former First Lady Michelle Obama has decided to not attend this inauguration. She also didn't attend the funeral for former President Jimmy Carter. We also know that some members of Congress are not attending this either, somewhat of a boycott, including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Some of the big names that are attending, obviously Trump's cabinet, or at least incoming or expected cabinet members. We could see Marco Rubio officially confirmed for Secretary of State later on today. But some of the names that are in this crowd are from the tech world. There's Elon Musk, there's Tim Cook, there's Mark Zuckerberg. These are all people who, in some cases, are sitting in front of members of Donald Trump's incoming cabinet. This is as kind of the tech world tries to embrace Donald Trump, to kind of welcome each other back into each other's lives here. It's also worth pointing out, Eric, that some of these people paid some incredibly large sums of money to get the interactions that they wanted, both with the incoming president, the vice president, and the cabinet. So there's a reason that we're seeing some of these people in the audience.
And Reggie, there's a lot of big name celebrities. We've got Carrie Underwood, who is performing America the Beautiful in just moments. And this time around, before the first inauguration of Donald Trump, people were afraid to come out to support him. He didn't get a lot of celebrity endorsements, but this time has really changed. What in the last 4 years has made the difference here?
I mean, look, there has been a political shift in this country. It is no longer that kind of fear from 2016 of that silent majority that we're talking about that voted in Donald Trump. He has become more mainstream. We've seen the kind of political side of this country shift to that of support for Donald Trump, less of a fear to support Donald Trump. And whether it's from Hollywood elites or whether it's from average Americans, we've seen the support. We saw the support on election night, not only with the electoral victory, but the popular vote. We've seen Donald Trump make inroads with young voters as well and embrace platforms like TikTok. That is all giving Donald Trump kind of that express walk back onto a main stage and being more mainstream. So whether it's, again, celebrities or musicians, we saw Kid Rock and the Village People at his rally yesterday, there is an embrace here of Donald Trump that we didn't see 4 years ago and we certainly didn't see 8 years ago.
Reggie, Trump will take the oath of office. He will deliver his inaugural speech, and then he's going to sign some executive orders. It sounds like they could happen very quickly. What are you expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that he'll go into the executive room in the Capitol building to sign these executive orders. It could be upwards of 200. Many of them are going to surround things that he talked about on the campaign trail, the kind of bread and butter topics here being immigration and border security. We also know that there was a possibility that he was going to deal with tariffs. That's obviously been a concern for the Canadian government as to what the impact of that would be. The Canadian government themselves have been readying for some kind of retaliatory tariffs, but there's new reporting now, Eric, that suggests that tariffs may be off the table. There could be more of a negotiation when it comes to trade or USMCA, so that might not be a part of this initial bulk of executive orders here. We also know he's going to roll back policies that Joe Biden put in place when it comes to the environment, when it comes to domestic energy production, potentially looking at the restarting of the Keystone Pipeline, obviously of significant importance to Canada. The question here, Eric, is what are these going to do to the average American? Many Americans put Donald Trump in place because they said things are too expensive in the United States. Is going after immigration or border security or domestic energy production going to lower the cost of bacon and eggs like Donald Trump talked about on the campaign trail? We won't find that out today. We'll see if that becomes a thing for Americans. Look, midterms are 2 years away. That is going to be the referendum point on Trump's first 2 years and everything that he signs today. All
right, so we're ushering in a new era with Trump, Reggie, but we have to talk about Biden for just a little bit. In his final hours, Joe Biden issued some pardons. So what can you tell us about those exactly?
Right. So these pardons are preemptive. This is untested for a president who has the power to issue these federal pardons here, given to Dr. Anthony Fauci, who came under significant criticism for policies put in place during the heights of the pandemic, for the January 6th Select Committee and for the staff around that committee who ultimately investigated what took place after the 2020 election and through the attack at the U.S. Capitol. Also for General Mark Milley, who was actively involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. This was done as a preemptive way to potentially shield anybody here who could find themselves on a quote-unquote enemies list, as we've heard from both Donald Trump and from people like Kash Patel. The question here is there going to be significant pushback on what Joe Biden did? But more importantly here, Miranda and Eric, Joe Biden now setting this precedent for a preemptive pardon. Do we see Donald Trump potentially take advantage of that at the end of his final term?
All right, Reggie, we'll leave it there for now, but we'll check in with you in just a few moments. We'll watch Trump's speech, so stay tuned. Stay warm, Reggie. We'll come back to you.
I think the point that Reggie was making about the pardons is really indicative of just how different this inauguration is.
Yes.
We associate this day with the pomp and the history and the bringing of people together, and yet in really what appears to have been Joe Biden's final act, he felt the need to pardon people such as Anthony Fauci, who has saved millions of lives with his health policies, most notably with vaccines in the pandemic, General Mark Milley, Capitol police officers, the members, as Reggie was saying, of the January 6th committee, Liz Cheney and others. The fact that he felt it was necessary to do that ahead of Trump coming in suggests what a different tone and a different mood there is with the outgoing administration, worried about the potential retribution that might come from Trump because he has promised retribution.
Now, how much of that can be undone, though? How much of what Biden has put into place, or these preemptive pardons, can that be undone by Trump? Could he not change things once he comes into power?
I think a pardon is pretty sweeping and pretty definitive. I don't know that in the end he might not have pursued much to be done anyway. But I think his reaction to this was that this was unheard of, should not have been done. But it shows the real split that exists in spite of what we're seeing right now is the very friendly confines inside the Capitol Rotunda, which looks very much like it might have been in 1985, the last time it was done indoors because of the weather. This looks ordinary, but beneath the surface, there's a lot of anxiety, I think, for a lot of Americans.
Well, Eric, you have a lot of experiences with inaugurations. You've actually attended several of them. So talk to us about your experience when you saw the inaugurations back in 2017, I believe, Trump's first. How is that different from what we're seeing and what we're going to see today, do you think?
Well, I think there was a lot of, both times with the two Trump inaugurations, 8 years ago and again this time, there was concern amongst, many on the political left and the political center about what was coming. I think last time there was more pushback. You saw that large, tens of thousands protesting the next day for women's rights near the Capitol. This year, there are protests, but it's not the same. I think there's a kind of just an acceptance that Trump is coming, and he's coming with all barrels firing this time. 8 years ago, who knew what Trump was going to do? He was bringing in new people to be around him. He wasn't sure how to do it. He's had 4 years now, not just 4 years of the presidency, but 4 more years to sort of think about how he wants to hit the ground running. And I think that's the expectation is that he will be signing some executive orders. I think he wants to demonstrate that that is what he wants to do immediately, possibly and probably on immigration for starters inside the U.S., to just demonstrate to people that this is what's coming, and it's coming fast.
All right, and just talking about some of the glaring differences this time around, we're seeing in the pictures down there, Joe Biden, he's shown up to Trump's inauguration, could not say the same thing for Trump showing up for Biden's inauguration 4 years ago.
Things are different, but in some ways this is at least a return to the way it has always been. The first inauguration involved George Washington in 1789. The only constitutionally mandated event on Inauguration Day is to take the oath of office, but on that day George Washington decided to give a speech, and every president since then has decided to do the same thing. And so we will see all of that. And I think Biden is returning to some of the norms that you would expect. He wants to demonstrate that this is a country that can transfer power peacefully. It is a democratic country. We didn't really see that 4 years ago, certainly with what happened on Capitol Hill January 6th, 2 weeks before the inauguration, and the fact that Trump didn't show up at the inauguration. Biden is saying, no, this is the way it should be and the way it's going to be, and I'm going to hand off at least in a way that is normal for this transition to happen. But then it's all in the hands of Donald Trump.
And are we expecting to hear from Biden? I see him standing behind the speaker right now. Do we hear any words from the outgoing president, or he's sort of had his time during his farewell address last week?
He's had his time. He's given his speeches. He's made some of the final moves that he could make with the power of the presidency. But as soon as Trump takes the oath of office and signs the papers that are necessary, he becomes the most powerful person in the world. And Biden becomes a former president. He joins, you can see on the picture, Bill Clinton and behind him. The other presidents are there, George Bush, Barack Obama. Reggie pointed out that Obama's wife, Michelle, is not there.
Noticeably absent, Michelle. Mm-hmm.
There were no reasons given, but I think it's clear to everyone that Michelle Obama cannot abide Donald Trump. I mean, he said things and did things that she felt put her own kids at some risk, and she's not going to. And she's not going to. She was not going to put a fake smile on her face to be here. The presidents have to be there. Obama has to be there. That's part of protocol. He, too, is wanting to demonstrate the normalcy of all of this.
And what we're seeing right now, we've got J.D. Vance, the vice president, being sworn in. His wife and his daughter beside him.
And domestic.
Against all enemies,
he has been
and domestic.
Pretty on the sidelines, since the campaign, right? Like we haven't heard from him.
He said a few things that I think upset a large portion of the population, so he sort of did take a back seat. But let's listen into a little bit of the swearing in of Vice President J.D. Vance.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office.
The duties of the office.
On which I am about to enter.
On which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
Chief Justice Roberts to administer the presidential oath of office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Donald J. Trump.
It's a moment of history. You can't help but sit back and just have some admiration for how they pull this off every few years. It is amazing to think that Donald Trump is back, considering his first term in office began 8 years ago. You would think that a second presidency would have been consecutive, but it's not the case. It was the oath of office, as always given. It's the briefer oath than the one taken by the vice president. It's just 35 words, although many now, as Trump did, added the extra 4 words at the end, so help me God. And it was administered by John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. This would be about the 6th time for him. He started with Obama.
Appointed by George W. Bush, I believe.
Yes, he was just a few years before he would have then administered the oath to Barack Obama in his first term in 2009.
How important is that, the justice who they choose to swear the president in? Does the president have a say on it? Is it someone in particular who takes over?
In terms of who is chosen to be the next Chief Justice, that is a presidential decision. I think what people will be watching for with the Supreme Court going forward is there are 2 justices who are quite old, Sam Alito and one other, and if they, Justice Thomas, and if they were to be urged perhaps to leave so that Trump could install 2 more conservative justices who would be much younger and try to entrench the conservative tilt that now exists in the court, I think that's what people will be watching for in the next few years with respect to the Supreme Court, which is now very conservative, thanks in part to 3 appointees from Donald Trump.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, there's a huge military thread that runs through these ceremonies. I know with Biden and his family, he had sons who served in the military. What would you describe Trump's relationship to the military as being?
Well, he has always wanted his relationship to be one where he looks like he is pro-military and he's for the military. But you'll notice that one of the people that was pardoned today was General Milley, who has said some, critical things of Donald Trump. And I think the Biden team felt that there was a concern there. And so there will be, I think, a lot of people watching to see how the military gets deployed. In the first instance, we may be seeing the military deployed almost immediately when it comes to the southern border. And if that happens, then that will become, the pomp will fade away quickly, and we will be turning to the big news of the day as to what's happening with undocumented immigrants in the United States.
Well, we'll have to see the executive orders that he's promised to sign on the first day, whether or not that's going to happen. Immigration, one of the big ones. Obviously, here in Canada, our concerns are over the possible 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods.
Yeah, as just as we're watching and Canadians are watching and Americans are watching, the Canadian federal cabinet is keeping an eye on this. They are meeting in Quebec today, and again, I think tomorrow. The Prime Minister and his team are ready with, it sounds like, an array of potential counter tariffs and countermeasures if the U.S. were to sign, if Trump were to sign executive orders imposing tariffs. There were reports, as Reggie was talking about earlier today, that suggested that's not going to happen immediately. I think there may be a fire hose of executive orders coming, but it's possible that one of them that's not coming has to do with tariffs. It sounds like the presidential memo is looking at having a review, particularly with respect to China, but also Mexico and Canada, to look at our trade relationship, to see where there are unfairnesses that he wants addressed. And that may take some time, and I think that will come as a big relief to many Canadians, because the alternative might have been instantaneous tariffs, 25%, possibly across the border in many big ways. And Canadians, not just at the federal level, but the provincial level. Doug Ford said today, if there are tariffs coming at us, he's ordered the LCBO, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, to take all the American products off the shelves. This isn't going to change the economy in any way, but it's a message to certain constituencies in the U.S. that this is not a good thing for the American economy either. If you're wanting to save money, bring down costs for Americans, if you're going to impose tariffs, that's not going to have that effect.
Yeah, they're our closest trading partner and ally, and we can't forget that and not lose sight of that. Obviously, Justin Trudeau, he's one of the leaders not in attendance here because he is dealing with the Canada-U.S. relations and the looming concerns of what a Trump presidency could look like for Canada.
No, among some of the leaders who are there, I think, is Viktor Orban from Hungary. Trump has made no secret of the fact that he admires so-called strong men in other parts of the world. He would like to be as much a strong man as possible in the presidency, where he doesn't even necessarily want to wait for Congress to approve certain things. He will move forward with executive orders in a way that I think we've never seen before.
Well, another interesting name, Xi Jinping is not there, the Chinese president is not there, but the Chinese vice president is in attendance. So to have a foreign dignitary from China at a time when China-U.S. relations aren't great.
No.
Is this maybe a step forward? He's trying to extend an olive branch and start off on the right foot?
We don't know entirely what all of his advisors around him over these last few weeks have been telling him. Certainly we're mostly preoccupied with what's happening with Canada, but here it looks like the president is getting ready to speak very soon.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, thank you very, very much. Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Senator Thune, Chief Justice Roberts, Justices of the United States Supreme Court, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and my fellow citizens. The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. And our top priority will be to create a nation that is proud, prosperous, and free. America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America. As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina, been treated so badly. And other states who are still suffering from a hurricane that took place many months ago. Or more recently, Los Angeles, where we're watching fires still tragically burn from weeks ago without even a token of defense. They're raging through the houses and communities, even affecting some of the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in our country, some of whom are sitting here right now. They don't have a home any longer. That's interesting. But we can't let this happen. Everyone is unable to do anything about it. That's going to change. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly. My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much. That is why each day under our administration of American patriots, we will be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. It is my hope that our recent presidential election will be remembered as the greatest and most consequential election in the history of our country. As our victory showed, the entire nation is rapidly unifying behind our agenda with dramatic increases in support from virtually every element of our society, young and old, men and women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, urban, suburban, rural, and very importantly, we had a powerful win in all 7 swing states, and the popular vote, we won by millions of people. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true. Thank you. Thank you. National unity is now returning to America, and confidence and pride is soaring like never before. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country. We will not forget our Constitution, and we will not forget our God. Can't do that. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. and by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have, the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal, and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers. In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote. I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. Something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families. Thank you. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. So as we liberate our nation, we will lead it to new heights of victory and success. We will not be deterred. Together we will end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation, and right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We are going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, performing America the Beautiful, please welcome the Armed Forces Chorus and Carrie Underwood.
And there you have Carrie Underwood, who has just arrived. She will be singing America the Beautiful at Trump's inauguration.
We want to listen to that a little bit, but certainly a lot to unpack from what Donald Trump said in his inaugural address. Some of the things he talked about, some of the things he did not include. Can't hear.
All right, so perhaps a bit of a technical difficulty. We're waiting for Carrie Underwood to start, but we know she has received quite a bit of backlash for signing on to sing at Trump's inauguration.
That being said, there is a lot more, I think, acceptance of what is coming. Trump spoke of that a little bit. He claims, support from across the country. He won the popular vote. I mean, there is a legitimate mandate he has, even more so than 8 years ago when he lost the popular vote by quite a bit. He gained a lot of votes from a lot of people that wouldn't have voted for him 8 years ago. And so he feels that he has a very popular mandate. And I think there is a certain level of acceptance, but it is, let's recognize, it is a 50-50 country.
Beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Fisher will now introduce the benediction clergy.
I now call on Rabbi Ari Berman, Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, and Reverend Frank Mund to provide prayers of benediction.
So Miranda, this is all part of the ceremony that you would normally expect and is now unfolding. There are things that are, of course, unusual about what's happening right now because it is indoors. There are some dignitaries who aren't even inside the room. He has, as we pointed out earlier, some tech billionaires are there, but like apparently Governor Ron DeSantis is in one of the spillover rooms. And then, of course, there are thousands of others, tens of thousands who won't have a chance to see anything firsthand. There are at least a few thousand, 20 to 23,000 or so, that will be at Capital One Arena. Trump is expected to go over there to make a speech as well. It'll be interesting to see if any of the executive orders that he has talked about will be signed and come into play that he can talk about when he's over there already. Again, there's so much about this day historically that is a celebration and full of pomp, and you have the inaugural balls, and it's kind of a day where everybody relaxes for a moment. I don't think there's nearly the type of relaxation that we've seen in the past, even from his time when he came in 8 years ago when he was brand new and there were new people. And he still obviously has a cabinet to swear in. But these executive orders, they're going to go forward quickly. And he's talked about that with respect to immigration. I think we're going to see some moves on that front. He talked about the military going to the southern border. These are big changes. They're coming very fast, and the sense of celebration will be short-lived because there is a lot of change coming about right away.
All right, so there we have it, Donald J. Trump officially returning to the White House. He was just sworn in moments ago, and it is a big day in Washington, Eric, with a long list of inaugural events. The day is certainly not over just yet. But on day one, Trump is really hitting the ground running. For more on what we heard during his inauguration speech, let's bring in Global News Washington correspondent Reggie Cicchini. So, Reggie, we want to talk to you about the speech that we just heard from Trump. It really was heavily focused on, understandably, putting America first. That's no surprise with Donald Trump there. But he said today, January 20th, 2025, is Liberation Day, and that the, quote, golden age of America has begun. What was your takeaway from his first address to the nation, Reggie?
Yeah, I mean, look, this was a speech that was far different from the one that we heard 8 years ago. There weren't as many of those overtures of America being a failing nation or a nation in decline. We heard Trump talk about the ambitions that exist inside this country in varying different forms, whether it was talking about how he wants to bring manifest destiny outside to discover Mars and plant the stars and stripes on another planet, or talking about American expansionism. I think that's going to perk up some ears in places like Canada or in Denmark, as you have an active United States president talking about how the map needs to grow bigger for the country. But realistically, this was an opportunity for Donald Trump to lay that groundwork for what he wants to see over the next 4 years. And it really stretched everything from, as you mentioned, border security, but also into culture wars, talking about how essentially DEI is not going to be something that America is going to pay attention to anymore, that he's going to kind of strip America back down to recognizing only two genders. These are things that parts of the Republican Party have been pushing for and that Donald Trump is going to try to seek to give them. But remember, he only has 2 years to really get as much of this work done as he can. Midterms will come up, and that is, again, going to act as a referendum on what we see Trump do over the first 2 years.
I think one of the things that Canadians have been watching for, Reggie, was what he would say about trade. He did address trade, but he did not necessarily suggest that we were going to see 25% tariffs or any tariffs right off the bat. What is your takeaway on that front?
Yeah, and I mean, look, the idea of tariffs here was kind of the bread and butter topic that Trump talked about when he was on the campaign trail, arguing that the United States was a country that was being taken advantage of by one country or another, pointing out whether it's Canada or Mexico or China, saying that these tariffs are going to ultimately be what gives America that ability to be more prosperous, even though there were a growing number of financial kind of watchdogs pushing back to say tariffs are not going to have the impact that Donald Trump wants them to have. I think it's going to be a question here as to what goes forward. Again, there was reporting earlier today that suggests maybe tariffs on Canadian goods are not going to happen first and foremost, but trade will be looked at. Nonetheless, Donald Trump did get into what he wants to see when it comes to trade and tariffs and how he intends for that to be a betterment for Americans. Take a listen.
Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources.
All right, so on that, I think a couple of things we can point out here. Number one, most experts have already suggested that tariffs, they do nothing more than to make things more expensive in the country where those tariffs are being put in place. So this could cost Americans more. Number two, when it comes to collecting tariffs and revenues, that is something that is already done either by the companies or by Customs and Border, who collect duties on goods that are sent into the United States. And the expansion of that to something like an external revenue service is going to be difficult. A, that's going to be costly, and it will get in the way of what the new Department of Government Efficiency would try to be dealing with. But number two, it would require congressional approval to get another agency put in place to collect this money back, which would ultimately cost more for Americans. So I think that there are things that Donald Trump is going to have to work through as he pushes forward with this agenda of putting tariffs on goods coming into the United States. But again, we need to wait and to see when things happen, because with Donald Trump, nothing is done until it's done.
And Reggie, when we talk about these executive orders, though, how realistic is it for him to be putting them into place today and them, actually being implemented tomorrow and taking shape and taking form? There must be some sort of procedure they would go through before we would actually see any action take place.
Right, and an executive order is signed by a president, and we see all presidents sign them when they come into office, not at the number that we're seeing with Donald Trump, but ultimately when the president uses the power of the executive pen, they are essentially dictating what they would like to see going forward. So if Donald Trump puts an executive order out on trying to deal with, stopping a surge of migrants at the southern border, or putting more money out there for the border wall, or whatever he'd like to do, some of this can be enacted fairly quickly, and we know that when it comes comes to issues surrounding mass deportations, there were actively kind of roundups that were supposed to take place in cities like Chicago, and that was going to take place as soon as Donald Trump signed these orders. So it's important for him to get some of them done. Some of them will face a potential legal pushback. Some of them may need to kind of circumvent the law, especially if you're talking about something like TikTok, where there's already a law on the books saying that the company needs to be divested from ByteDance. It's unclear what an executive order is going to do, but many of them will work, and many of them are going to kind of be that indicator of what Trump wants to get done over the next couple of years. And with 200 executive orders to be signed, this is a tall task for what Donald Trump is trying to set out as a part of that mandate he said he was given.
If the headline for Canada was that the trade tariffs are not coming at us just yet, and there may be some relief around the federal cabinet and in other places like Queen's Park in Ontario, where the Premier of Ontario was suggesting he was prepared to take actions himself. At the same time, there are some things that are coming at us pretty quickly. He spoke of sending military troops to the southern border of the U.S. It sounds like immigration and undocumented immigrants is really a primary target for him right away.
Yeah, and this was something that we heard from voters right across the primary season and through to election night being one of their biggest concerns, was that nothing was being done to keep America secure. And I think some of the criticisms are going to be pointed, Eric, at the Biden administration for either acting too late to deal with the southern border or not making it as much of a priority. Look, we saw Joe Biden give Kamala Harris kind of the portfolio for dealing with the border, and she was more tasked with dealing with kind of the root cause of people coming in from Central America into the U.S. But ultimately, the Biden administration was seen as having failed on that front. And Donald Trump, during most of his campaigns, would go on about how there is an ongoing threat to U.S. security because of people that are coming from the border. So putting the military down there, trying to use the National Guard, this is going to be something that is going to face some potential pushback from the Democrats, but the Democrats are going to be in the minority, and Trump is going to have far fewer barriers standing in his way. This is a presidency now that is not being met with the deterrence that we saw in that first term, Eric. There is much more deference here for Donald Trump to do what he wants to do, and he intends to do it fairly quickly.
Yeah, and you wonder about one of his priorities is going to be energy. And, you know, it's fascinating to sort of listen to him say it's drill, baby, drill. At the same time, he was critical of the response of what happened to the wildfires in California without sort of drawing the connection between that many environmentalists would say is when you drill and keep drilling, you're going to have more and more wildfires in California. So what is your sense of what this energy focus could mean for Canada? Because one thing Canada is rich in is energy of all sorts.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a potential here for Canada to get involved. We know Donald Trump is potentially going to look into ways to restart the Keystone XL pipeline, something that was canceled under the Biden administration, to much criticism coming from both Donald Trump, Republicans, and particularly Republicans from in the Midwest. But look, that drill, baby, drill kind of mantra that we heard from Trump and from people in states like Pennsylvania, where that is going to be key, where the issue of fracking is key. I mean, these are the things that gave Donald Trump the power and position that he has right now, trying to kind of produce more of this domestic energy. I think what he's going to have to do now is try to get around some of the roadblocks that were put in place, Eric, by then President Biden, including restrictions on offshore drilling. That could potentially be why we see Donald Trump talking about renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, possibly to get around wording that's in an executive order. But if the U.S. says that it wants to be, the energy kind of producer of the world, I think the question is going to be, is it going to be able to? Because these are things that we heard Donald Trump say during his first acceptance speech 8 years ago. He's now repeating them. Is he going to get it done, or will it meet a roadblock once again?
All right, Reggie, a lot of promises made by the new president, President Donald Trump, the 47th president. We'll see how many of them come to fruition and what that looks like. As always, Reggie, thank you so much for joining us for the inauguration special. We appreciate it.
It was interesting. Reggie was talking about just some of the things he's looking at on the foreign landscape. I think one that sort of jumped out at us was his suggestion that, the Panama Canal. He says China is controlling that and we're going to take it back. And when you talk about the potential for deploying American military, are we going to see something like that, in the not too distant future with respect to Panama? And that is a long and complicated issue and would be a big international incident if that begins to take shape.
Absolutely. I mean, between that, declaring Canada could be the 51st state, wanting to take over Greenland, there's a lot of scary promises or threats that he's made over the past couple of weeks. Whether or not they'll actually come to fruition, we'll have to wait and see. But to employ the U.S. military, he would need a lot of people to sign off on that. So for that to happen, not likely, I would like to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the 51st state thing was to some degree perhaps trolling this country and our prime minister, calling him a governor of a state. A lot of it was just, I think, how he feels about Trudeau in the first instance, but maybe also about Canadians, the fact that he doesn't feel Canadians are getting, it's not a fair trade deal. We take advantage of them. We take advantage of their military being so big, and that we don't meet the expected amount of contributions based on our GDP towards NATO. I think all of those things he understands clearly, and Canadians kind of have to shuffle their feet a little bit on some of those issues. But at least he did not, in this address, come anywhere close to talking about, declaring Canada a 51st state. I don't know that that's going to ever happen, obviously. I don't mean that Canada would ever abide by it, but I mean that he's even going to move forward on that. But the trade stuff, the tariff stuff, I think, that remains to be seen.
Well, I mean, he also mentioned that he wants America to be the envy of every other nation. And we do have a clip from his speech that we heard. Let's hear more of that right now.
From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
He's been saying that all along, putting America first.
Yep.
And the relationships he has with other leaders across the world, do you think he has a better go of it than Biden did, taking over the reins from Biden, heading into this new chapter?
Well, he's more of a wild card. I think Biden fit very much into the long arc of American history in terms of how leaders conduct themselves, even in terms of what happened in the Middle East, remaining a stalwart supporter of Israel, while at the same time declaring that there needs to be a two-state solution that helps both sides. He does have a relationship that is very different with Vladimir Putin. What this might mean for Ukraine and the war there, maybe it does bring about a change that even both sides would want. On that front, I think everybody would wish him the best.
All right, still a lot of unknowns, but it's going to be an interesting 4 years. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Providing your insight, that was wonderful. But our coverage doesn't end here. Please head to globalnews.ca for continued coverage of Trump's inauguration.
Not bad, huh?
gentlemen, we are here as witnesses to President Trump's triumphant return to the White House. Right now, already this morning, you can feel it around the country. We certainly felt it here in the city. America is coming together and roaring back again, and it begins today, as the president just told us. I know we'd all rather be gathered together on the National Mall with hundreds of thousands of our closest friends, but our disappointment is well overcome with our excitement for the future that we feel today. We have the chance to make the next 4 years the most consequential period in our nation's history. And as Speaker of the House, it is my great pleasure, my great honor, to introduce to you the man who will lead us to this new golden age, the decisive winner of the Electoral College and the popular vote, the 45th and the 47th, and the greatest president of our lifetimes, Donald J. Trump.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. And was that a hell of a speech or what? That was, man. That was a good way to start it off. You know, I didn't know exactly what the president would put in that speech, and I hoped to myself that he wasn't going to hold back, and sir, you didn't hold back. That was a hell of a way to start the next 4 years. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for the president and for all of us, thank you, thank you, thank you for making this possible. We love you. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're going to make America great again together for the next 4 years. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, having stood outside for about 5 minutes to wave goodbye to the Bidens, thank God we moved that thing indoors, because it was a beautiful ceremony and it was cold as hell outside. So, sir, the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
No, he's right. I looked, I said, oh, look at this beautiful sunny day. We blew it, and then I went outside and we were freezing. You would have been very unhappy. The sun was very deceptive, I will tell you. It is cold out. And I'm sort of saying, you know, that was so beautiful today. Maybe they should do it there every 4 years. Does that make sense? I don't know. Because, you know, the outdoor thing is really good, but it gets a little cold around this time of the year, as some people have noticed. And a lot of times they suffer through it. There was no suffering in that room. It was 72 degrees. It was perfect with the best acoustics I think I've ever heard in a room. This is not so bad either. But I just want to say, you're a younger, far more beautiful audience that I just spoke to. And I want to keep it off the record. I want to keep that off the record, because I don't want to have all those big shots up there. I don't want to think you're more powerful than them, you look better than them, and I love you. Now, we just had a great time. We just had a great day. This was amazing. You know, when you think we took a journey, I mentioned in the speech, a lot of people said that was not a journey that was possible, and it was indeed possible. I didn't really know too much about what they were saying when they said that, but a lot of people felt it, and we hooked up with J.D. very early. I watched J.D. over a period of time. I endorsed him in Ohio. He was a great senator, and very, very smart. The only one smarter than him was his wife. That was, I would have chosen her, but somehow the line of succession didn't work that way, right? But now she's great, and he's great. This is a great, beautiful couple, and unbelievable career. I just said to him, you are very upwardly mobile, because he hasn't been doing it that long, but he picked it up so quickly. Remember, the first week was a little bit like the fake news was hitting him really hard. And I said, ooh, this may be tough, but after that, it was smooth sailing for him. He took on everybody. He took on the meanest. I don't want to use the word corrupt because we're into a new system, so let's wait till the corruption begins, because it will. But he took on some pretty mean people, and he handled it well. I want to also congratulate Mike Johnson for the job that he's doing. Steve, we gave him a majority of almost nothing, and then I said, to make it tougher on him, let me take 2 or 3 of the people, right? I said, he'll only have to suffer with that for about 3 months. How are they doing, by the way? Are they? Is that moving along?
Totally unified.
I said, do you mind if I take this one, that one, and a couple of others? He didn't mind. He can handle it. No, he's a man that's liked by everybody. I've never met a man like this. You've got how many is it, 219 or 220 or something? 220. And of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got 1 negative vote once about 2 weeks ago. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate him. So if you have 35 people that hate you and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, you know, the good news is when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You could be really nasty to a couple of them at least, you know? So it's going to feel like hitting your head on the wall and stopping. It feels so good to stop. But he's done a fantastic job. And Steve Scalise is, he's our hero because, you know, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones, and his incredible wife, and she really loves him. You know, you never know about that. I've been with other people. They were doing poorly, and the wife is like looking at her watch. She can't get out of the hospital fast enough. How's he doing? Oh, I don't know. He's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. They're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was a while, too. The doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here he is, the picture of strength, right? And he's been a great friend of mine, right? With a family, because of a family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things, to say that were extremely controversial. And between J.D. and Melania and anybody else that heard, please, sir, it's such a beautiful, unifying speech. Please, sir, don't say these things. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to play great. They say, you're right. For this group of people, it's going to play great. You're the only ones I hurt by not, but we had some beauties, didn't we, Melania? She said, sir, calls me sir when she's angry. I said, no, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm only kidding, or the press is going to pick that one up loud and clear. No, but she said, no, I think it would be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good? But she said it's such a beautiful speech. You can't put things in there that you were going to put in. And I was going to talk about the J6 hostages, but you'll be happy because, it's action, not words that count. And you're going to see a lot of action on the J6 hostages. See a lot of action. And I was going to talk about the things that Joe did today with the pardons of people that were very, very guilty of very bad crimes, like the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs, where they literally, what they did is they destroyed and deleted all of the information, all of the hearings, practically not a thing left. They deleted all the information on Nancy Pelosi having turned down the offer of 10,000 soldiers. You wouldn't have needed 10,000. You could have had 500, and it would have stopped. Because we may have had 1 million people that day, the people that were there. You don't see any photographs, but we have a lot of great photos. But you don't see those photographs. They don't put them in. They show the people at the Capitol. But I was talking about that. I was going to talk about that. They said, please don't bring that up right now. You can bring it up tomorrow. I said, how about now in front of I'll bring it up right now. This little time delay is good because we're getting great reviews on the speech. Now watch. They'll take the speech and say, I didn't like it because he left there and he's talked to people. But we're giving you a little more information than we gave upstairs. But no, they pardoned a lot of people. They pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers, absolute murderers, the worst murderers. When you get the death sentence in the United States, you have to be bad because they don't give it much. And he pardoned almost everybody having a death sentence. And if you went through the crimes that were committed, you wouldn't even believe them, the level of violence, the people that were killed, the innocence of people that were killed and children killed by these people. And he pardoned them for whatever reason. He spared them, but they didn't spare the people that they killed. And, who knows what happens in the future. It's one of the worst because a lot of times they let them out early after that. They say you're going to be in for life, but then all of a sudden they get let out for good behavior, and then they go on a rampage. It's one of those little things, right? But I was going to talk about that. But I was really going to talk about the level of, what's going on. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to help a guy like Milley? Why are we doing Milley? He was pardoned. What he said, terrible what he said. Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crying. I never saw the guy not crying. He's always crying. I looked at him. I remember years ago he was actually on my side. And then one day, you know, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment, you know, where her father works, right? And but what she did was incredible. Think of it. They destroyed and deleted all of that information that went on for almost 2 years against Trump. And the reason they did, because it was all false, like the person that said, I tried to strangle a Secret Service agent. That's one of the toughest human beings I think I've ever seen. I actually had a friend saying, please don't change that, sir. You are the coolest sucker in history. Remember, she said, I put my hands around his neck because he wouldn't go to the Capitol. Made up fiction. And I was rebuffed. And the guy on the right is a massive weightlifter, probably stronger than me. Do you think he's stronger than me, honey? You know who I'm talking about. Possibly stronger than me. Slightly younger than me, like, I won't say how many years because I don't want to talk about that, but a lot of years. But I had a friend that said, why are you disputing that story? That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That I would attack a karate champion, get slightly rebuffed, and then throw my arms around a guy with a neck about this big. Even though there are bars, you know, there are bars, you can't really do that anyway. So I wanted to talk about that. But all of that stuff got deleted. And the reason it got deleted is they were all caught in lies. You know, Secret Service testified, and they said it didn't happen. Actually, the two guys were very embarrassed. They're suffering because their friends are saying, did Trump really do that to you? But they gained a whole new respect for me. But it was just make-believe stuff, and there were a lot of make-believe stories made up. So rather than suffer the wrath, like the story with Nancy Pelosi, I offered her 10,000 soldiers. She knows it. She admitted it on tape that her daughter made. She's a videographer or whatever you call her, which I'm glad she is. Oh, she can't be in good stead with Nancy. But Nancy said it was my responsibility as she's leaving the Capitol. She said it was, and it was. She's in charge of security at the Capitol. But I offered them up to 10,000 soldiers, even more. One time I said more, as many as you need. But you needed 400 or 500. If 4 or 5, you 10,000, that would be more than the number of people there by lot. But we offered her 10,000. Think of it, 10,000 soldiers. In other words, J6 wouldn't be J6. There would have been no J6. But she rebuffed them. She didn't like it. No, she didn't like it. Maybe she wanted that to happen. But she's guilty as hell. And now we would have to go through the process because they destroyed all evidence. They deleted everything. There's virtually nothing left. The other fake story and so many other fake stories. And many people came out on our side. And those people now, we've got to find them. There's nothing left. So that's a criminal offense. If that were a civil case, it would be a criminal offense. If that happened civilly where you did that, it would be a criminal offense. So I decided I'm not going to make this speech complicated. I'm going to make it beautiful. I'm going to make it a unifying speech. And then when they said we have a group of people that are serious Trump fans, I said, this is the time to tell those stories. He knows. So anyway, but seriously, I'd like to, I think it was a tremendous success. I think we're very lucky we put it inside because it is really cold. We just went to the helicopter out of respect. It's something that's taken place for a long time. I guess it's as old as helicopters. You used to get into a stagecoach, now you get into a helicopter. Times change. But it's pretty old custom. And it's a beautiful custom, actually. It's a beautiful custom. I wish we could have had a better relationship. I wish we could have had a better relationship between Republicans and Democrats. I was with Senator Schumer. I said, Chuck, I think it's time we all start getting along a little bit because it doesn't make sense. I mean, we literally never get a Democrat vote. They never get a Republican vote, almost. And although there is a bill coming up very shortly that we have a lot of Democrat votes, right? That's going to be a very beautiful bill. We're going to have a signing, I would say, within a week or so, I think. And it's going to be a very good bill. You all know what I'm talking about. So I just want to thank you all for being here. You have been our fans from day one. All these people all over. You've been our fans. This has been there's never been anything like it. There's never been anything like it. This has been a movement like no movement ever in history for probably any country, let alone this country. You know, if somebody's running for president, and if they go out and they announce they're going to Arizona, they're going to Nevada, they're going to someplace, if you have 200 or 300 people, that would be standard. Ronald Reagan would go out. I mean, outside of the last couple of days where people get a little excited, but even then you have a couple of thousand people. But if you're going to go someplace, any place, any one of the swing states, any one of the other states, I mean, how about the non-swing states? We won Alabama by 48 points. We won Tennessee by massive numbers. Wyoming, we won by numbers that are, nobody's ever seen numbers like that. And, you know, places like California, we did great, but when they send out like 38 million ballots, and nobody knows where the hell they're sending them, and then they come pouring back, the whole thing. You know, they passed a law in California that if you work in an election bureau, and if you so much as ask for a voter ID, if you say, sir, ma'am, could I please look at your voter ID? They have the right to put you in jail. You're a criminal. Can you believe that? There's only one reason that happens. They want to cheat. So they had it where voter ID wasn't accepted. But now if you even ask for it, this is seriously a bill that was just signed, passed in their legislature, and it was signed. And I think when we get things cleaned up and we get back to a little bit of normalcy, I'm going to ask the Speaker to really get involved, because I think we would have won the state of California, because, you know, if you look at my numbers with Hispanic, we're at 56%. And we were winning. We won the Texas border that had never been won. As the governor said, he's doing a good job, the governor, by the way, of Texas. But as the governor said, it hasn't. Oh, did I get lucky? Did I get lucky? Supposing I said, you know, he's not here, but the governor of Texas has done a terrible job. Wow, look at you. You mean we couldn't get you up in the front row? I'll tell you. Supposing I said, JD, the governor of Texas, he's not doing his job. You heard what I said. See, I didn't know you were there. I said he's doing a great job. He's doing a phenomenal job. But now you're going to have a partner that's going to work with you, because you didn't have, not only didn't he have a partner, he had people selling the wall, right? We have a fence structure that we worked on, the governor worked on with me. And I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I wanted a nice precast concrete, you know, 40, 50 feet high, like a beautiful, could have been a T-shape, Y-shape. I love construction. I wanted that sucker to go up maybe 50, 60 feet. It would have looked beautiful, a nice Y shape. And they said, the problem is, sir, they climbed that like a rabbit. I said, what do you mean? No way. And they brought some of these guys out. They climbed it like... And the other thing is you hit it with acid and the thing will disintegrate. You know, they have things for concrete. So they needed very hardened steel, very special steel. And then they needed 7,000-pound concrete inside that steel, inside that steel. And then they have a rebar that's the toughest steel made. Very hard to cut. So this is why very little is cut. I mean, it's right. And then they put a anti-climb panel on top. I hated it. I said, it's so unattractive. And I said, why would that work? I don't believe it works. And I went to watch the Border Patrol, gave a display. We had actually two sets of climbers. The guys that climb up walls with drugs on their back, I mean, they got like 60, 70 pounds of drug, and they go as fast as you can walk. They go bip, bip, bip. Or we have Mount Everest type climbers. And honestly, the drug guys were much better. I couldn't believe it. The drug guys blew them away, right? But it's true, the anti-climb panel, they couldn't get around it. They just couldn't. When you didn't have it. So sometimes you sacrifice beauty for efficiency. And we did. So we built this wall, and we built over 500 miles of wall. That's why we had such good numbers. The famous chart that came down very thankfully. The chart that came down on my right, Governor, had I not looked over there, I'm not speaking right now. You might be speaking here. You want to know the truth? You, JD, have got a lot of great people in this party, but I got very lucky, but we had the best numbers we've ever had. But I bought, you know what happens is when you fill it up, it's like water. You fill it up. Now we have 571 miles of wall. And they would always say, you know, when we renovated a wall, so there'd be like a piece of plywood sitting there for 60 years, or a 2x4 sitting for 60 years on the ground and rotting. Because, you know, and they'll say, you didn't build a new wall. Here we're building 50 feet up in the air, and 30 feet sections, 50-foot sections, all steel, all concrete, all everything. And all, by the way, they don't even want me to say this, but what the hell, doesn't take that long time. They're all wired for all of the equipment. We put wires in everything so they can easily wire for all the different types of equipment. And if there's a doubt, we have to wire. Whenever we just look, you just find the wires all over the place up top, so we can just hook it up. We don't have to have wires on the outside, which wouldn't do too well, right? So anyway, so we built an extra 200 miles of wall, and the governor wanted to buy it. He tried to buy it, and they wouldn't sell it to him. He wanted to put it up himself. Could have been done in 3 to 4 weeks, 200 more miles, because when you do it, now they just keep going further out, further out, further out, getting around. So we did an extra 200 miles, and it was all bought, and they announced that they're not going to put it up. And that's when I realized they wanted open borders, and that's when I realized that people are going to come pouring through the wall like nobody's ever seen before, but you've seen it. A lot of you are here because of that. I made it my #1 issue. They all said inflation was the #1 issue. I said I disagree. I think people coming into our country from prisons and from mental institutions is a bigger issue for the people that I know. And I made it my #1. I talked about inflation too, but you know, how many times can you say that an apple has doubled in cost? I'd say it, and I'd hit it hard, but then I go back to the fact that we don't want criminals coming into our country. We don't want the jails of every country in the world virtually being deposited into the United States, and that man had to suffer with it. And he did an unbelievable job. I'll tell you, he was a very popular governor, but now he's like an unbeatable governor because of your border policies. He was fantastic. And he really was. So. Governor Abbott he's a great man, a great leader. And, but it did make him did you do it? You didn't do that for politics. You did it because you wanted to do the right thing. But I'll tell you, it sure as hell worked for politics too. It's self-preservation, that's right. But no, because the people are demanding it. The people of Texas are demanding it. The people are demanding it all over. So anyway, so we built it, and they wouldn't let us use it. They wouldn't let the governor use it. And other governors, they wouldn't let him use it. But he was the leader of the pack and did a great job. And then we heard about a month ago that not only wouldn't they let us use it, they were selling it. They were going to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. Now, 5 cents on the dollar then, but today it would cost more than twice as much to build because we bought it like 6 years ago. And it was just sitting on the ground, and that does not do well for the whole thing. But it was just sitting on the ground, and I heard about it, and I called the governor, and I called a lot of people, your attorney general. And here's the story. They were going to buy it, and these are great business people. They were going to buy it for 5 cents on the dollar or less. And they were calling us up, we'll sell it to you for 200 cents on the dollar. In other words, it will cost you twice as much, so it's 200 cents on the dollar. I said, can somebody explain that to a judge? I mean, how corrupt is that? You'd think they'd say, maybe we'll sell it to you for 20 cents, 30 cents, but not 200 cents. So they were going to buy something for 5 cents, and they were going to sell it to us for a fortune. They were going to make they'd have it down in Fortune magazine, they'd put it of the deal of the year, okay? You buy something like that. But it was so corrupt and so horrible. And when we told that to the administration, they didn't care. They just kept going forward. They couldn't care less. And they kept going forward. They knew that they were trying to sell it back to us. They would have sold it back to us. You would have ended up buying it. You would have paid probably 50, 60 cents, who knows. But they were going to use it for scrap metal, but then they made a much better deal. They could just buy it and sell it to us for 15, 20 times what they paid. 20 times, think of it, like 20 times what they paid. And we wouldn't let it happen. And the governor with his attorney general, Ken Paxton, they made a fantastic, they're a good lawyer. He's pushed around pretty good by people, right? I said, you got a great attorney general. They should leave him alone. He was with me. But Ken and the governor went to court, and a judge actually became incensed and actually called for an investigation. How could a thing like this happen? So he stopped it. So we're waiting to put that wall up. And now that you have a new president, that wall will go up so fast. The governor will complain, sir. This is Greg Abbott, sir. Please, the wall is going up too fast. Please don't do that. You know the story about winning. No, we're going to win too much. We're winning too much. Please, let's stop. People always love that one. We'll do this with the wall. Governor Abbott calls, sir, the wall is going up too fast. We can't take it. We just can't take it. No, I think you'll be very happy if the wall goes up too fast, right? But we'll get that done, and we'll work with you on that. But it was a great decision by a great Texas judge, right? And it was beautiful, beautiful to watch. He stopped them right in their track. I mean, they were literally loading this stuff onto trucks. It was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible. And he wouldn't take it. So I'm so glad I mentioned that they have a really good governor in Texas. And I swear, I didn't know he was here. I swear to you, it sounds like a setup. I didn't know you would end. Did I get lucky? I said the right thing. Because there have been moments when I wasn't so happy with him, you know? But not too many, I can tell you that. So anyway, it's good to see you too, Governor. Great. But I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. I recognize so many of you. It's so crazy. But this has been a long journey. This was a journey that started in 2015, probably started 20 years before that. People used to say, you're going to run for president? You're going to run? And I always said, no, I don't want. And then one day I said, let's give it a shot. And what I talked about then was the border, too. I think it probably was the number one issue for me. Back in 2015, 2016, I talked about the border. And now I talked about the border, but this border is much worse. We fixed the border. It was totally fixed. There was nothing to talk about. 2020, by the way, that election was totally rigged, but that's okay. It was a rigged election. You know the only thing good about it? It showed how bad they are, showed how incompetent, and frankly, historically, this is a much bigger event. If that would have gone like it should have. The bad thing about it is some bad things happened, like a lot of people in our country that wouldn't be in our country right now. So, you know, that's the bad part. But I will say that it started in 2015, and right from the beginning, we went to the top. Day one, they announced Trump, and Trump went to number one and stayed there for the whole primary. And then we took on Hillary. She didn't look too happy today. We took on Hillary. A very nice person, but we took on Hillary and we defeated Hillary, and then we did much better the second time in 2020. You know, we got millions more votes. We got millions, like 10, 12 million more votes than we did the first time. No president has ever gotten that many more votes. I got like 9 million more than anybody else had ever gotten, and they said we lost. And because of that, I said to Melania, what do you think? And she said, you want to do this again? And had we lost, and had I thought we lost, I wouldn't do it again, because that's like the ultimate poll, right? But I knew how well we did, and this time we made it too big to rig. It was so big. They tried. They tried like hell in the butt. They tried to do it, and around 9:02, they gave up. Last time they did bad things, but this time they just said, yes. You know, I don't know if you saw, Mr. Speaker, in Washington, they had placards. They were all set to march. They thought it'd be closer. A gentleman asked me, a very respected gentleman asked me yesterday, how come the polls were so wrong? They showed you winning, but not in a landslide. I said, because people that are true Trumpers are so angry at the whole polling system and at the writers, the fake news, that they don't want to talk to anybody. So when you call somebody from Trump, who are you voting for? They say, it's none of your business. I'm not telling you. And that was probably 40% of the people they called. So they would discard that one, and they didn't show that. And then when the election happened, you know, the vote came, and it was much different, much higher than we're going to win. But they really thought, they couldn't believe. The one man said, I mean, it was so much higher. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by millions of votes, which is hard for a Republican. I'll tell you who came through. The unions came through. The auto workers were great. The Teamsters were great. The firemen were great. I think almost every union was great. The only one that weren't great, although Sean was great, and the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, was fantastic. But generally speaking, the head of the union was against Trump, but the union would be with us for like 85%. Look what we did with the auto workers in Michigan. Look what we did with the Teamsters. The Teamsters were unbelievable. They were a solid Democrat vote, and they voted for Trump. So we had a great experience. Now we have to go to work and get it done, because we have to do something that's going to be great. We're going to turn our country around, and we're going to turn it around fast. And I think this was a better speech than the one I made upstairs, okay? I think this was better, JD. I think this was much better, and I got to see my friend. So, Governor, take care of yourself. You call me, we'll start working. You know what that means with him. He's going to be calling me tomorrow morning at about 6. And I said, how about next week? You call me, and we're going to get it started real fast. We'll really help you a lot. You've done a fantastic job protecting something which it's not supposed to be for the states. And amazing job you've done. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody. And I have a First Lady who's been incredible. She's been incredible. I shouldn't say this. I'm going to get hell when I say this, but her feet are absolutely aching. You know, those heels. And we thought we were leaving. We were going home. Sir, would you be able to go down and say hello to some of your other fans that are here? I said, oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Did you get to see pretty clearly the picture, I hope? Good. That's good. But because you wouldn't want to make the same speech again, right? But she said, darling, I love you so much, but my feet are killing me. I said, honey, let me just see how far it is. I asked the person. Oh, not that long, maybe 400 or 500 yards. That's 5 football fields. I said, can you make it? She said, we're going to make it no matter what. We're going to make it because we have to get, right? Right? And then we went out to the helicopter, though, just prior to this, and said goodbye. And it's a custom, and the wind is blowing like crazy. And with the hat that she's wearing, she almost blew away. We almost lost off her. She was being elevated off the ground. She almost blew away. No. So we all appreciate it, because she's been a great First Lady. A beautiful and a great First Lady. And they love our First Lady. You know, JD, whenever I make a speech, I see hundreds of times, we love our First Lady, we love, and they do, and they should. She's great. So I just want to thank you very much. I just want to thank everybody. And I felt that, I said to JD, should we give him the A treatment, the B treatment, the C, the D, or the F? You know what the F is? Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye. I gave you the A+ treatment. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Governor. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.